Hello class, today we're going to be looking at active transport in cells, and so we have 4 questions here to be looking at. Define active transport. What is the energy molecule called? Which we should have from a past chapter. Number 3, explain the process of the sodium-potassium pump and why is it considered active transport. And number 4, define endocytosis and exocytosis. Okay, so with active transport, we are going to be looking at Chapter 5, Section 2, and we're going to be looking at using energy. So the difference between passive and active transport is that active transport actually uses energy, which the energy molecule is ATP. We've mentioned that in past chapters. And the ATP is actually used to move those molecules and those materials against the concentration gradient. So now, before it was really easy. Things were just falling kind of across that concentration gradient. They wanted to try and get to equilibrium. Active transport is going to try and actually move things up against the gradient. So this is like going up the stairs. So we have to use energy to do it. And when we go up the gradient, we're actually going against equilibrium. So the goal of passive transport was to get to equilibrium. The goal of active transport is to actually fight that equilibrium. It's going against equilibrium. The first choice here, the first type, is a pump. And we're going to look specifically at the sodium-potassium pump, although there are more pumps than just the sodium-potassium pump. Any pump is going to be active transport. The sodium-potassium pump specifically moves sodium and potassium ions across the membrane against their gradient. So we can see here this is going into the cell, and this is out of the cell. So sodium is moving in, and potassium is being pumped out. And a potassium pump here, oh sorry, I said that backwards. We have sodium normally going in and potassium normally going out, but our pump itself is sodium coming out. Sorry, I said that backwards, so you'll have to change that on your sheet. And potassium being moved in. So it's going against the gradient. This right here is showing normal diffusion through ion channels. And this pump is being represented here, where sodium is being taken out of the cell and potassium is being taken into the cell. Again, it's going to go to high concentration, and it has to use ATP. The other options for active transport are endocytosis and exocytosis. So endocytosis is large, big pieces of material, and they go into the cell. And so what will happen is a vesicle will be formed, or a pocket will be formed, to take whatever large materials it is, and it will move it into the cell. And usually it's coming into the cell to be digested. So it's moving into the cell to the lysosome in order to be digested or kind of recycled. It does use ATP. And there's 2 types of endocytosis. The first is pinocytosis, which is the cell drinking. So pino means drinking. Cyte, again, means cell. And so it's the cell taking in liquid. And then phago means eating, and cyto, again, means cell. And so this is solids that are being taken into the cell. You do need to know the difference between those if you were to see pinocytosis or phagocytosis. They're both things being taken into the cell, but pino is liquid and phago is solids. If you want to picture it kind of like a Pac-Man, it'd be Pac-Man eating or Pac-Man drinking, if that helps you to think about it. And this is kind of the process of how it happens. So the cell membrane doesn't actually open up. What will happen is the cell membrane will make a pocket, and that pocket will get closer and closer together. This is kind of the stuff that's inside. And then that pocket will eventually start to pinch off and close off, making what is in the final spot a vesicle. And so it doesn't ever just open its contents up to the rest of the environment or outside of the cell. It's just that the cell membrane will make this sort of pocket or vesicle and then pull it into the cell. And then our last form of active transport is exocytosis. And exo being exit, and so it's exiting the cell. Large amounts are going out of the cell or exiting. And again, it'll be a vesicle, so the vesicle fuses to the cell membrane and releases or kind of throws up. It's like Pac-Man throwing up. So the vesicle will fuse to the cell membrane. The cell membrane does not just open up and let stuff out. It has this vesicle that attaches to the cell membrane and then opens only the vesicle, kind of like a pimple or something. It just comes up and opens that last little vesicle. And here's an example of that. So the entire cell is safe. It's not like it opens up that entire cell. It's just that it kind of works backwards from that last example that we showed you with endocytosis. The vesicle actually moved to the cell membrane and only the vesicle opens up here. And this is just large material right here. Whatever it happens to be that just can't go through the cell membrane on its own, and it's kind of spewed out. There is an animation on the Google Docs form, and you can click on that and listen to it, be able to go back and hear it and see it happen without putting it on this video. So please refer there if you need some extra help or want to see the animation.